Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to the car, and Merry Christmas. Today, we are going to continue answering questions from the 10,000 subscriber AMA. So let's just jump right back into it. Nick writes, Congrats on 10K, Andreas. Are there any features for Serenity OS that you are secretly hoping that someone from the community will take on because you personally aren't excited about or don't feel like implementing them? That's a funny question. So I don't think that there is any one feature that I feel is necessary, but I don't want to touch. I'm very much willing to work on everything, but um, I'm always the happiest if people who want to work on something end up working on that thing, because I have this philosophy that the best software is made when people are working on the thing that interests them and the thing that they are like genuinely excited about, right? Um, so I try to keep things flowing that way. But I guess if there's one thing, then I'm really happy when people do sort of security work, security analysis, um, and any kind of exploration of vulnerabilities and things like that, because um, that can be very time consuming, and it's um, when you spend time doing security, you sort of produce less software. And I'm very grateful when other people engage with that side of Serenity, because then I can focus on building stuff. That said, I do enjoy security investigations myself, and I try to um, do a bit of that every now and then. But that, I guess that's the one thing that I really appreciate when other people pick up. Okay, so Tony writes 10K means there are things you're doing great. Can you recommend me three C++ books? Basic, mid, and advanced. Thank you. I'm sorry, Tony. I don't know what books to recommend. I haven't read a C++ book in forever. Um, but I'm sure that you can find something. But yeah, sorry about that. Devashish writes, Do you feel anxious when something does not work? The thing not working may be as simple as a build failure or something much more complex. I do. Just wanted to check if that goes away with time as you gain more experience. Um, well, I don't really feel anxious if something doesn't work because I've done this so many times that I know that if something doesn't work, but I understand how it's supposed to work, then I can usually make it work. It's just a matter of like ironing out the kinks, right? Um, but I do feel some pressure sometimes if I'm in a work situation, for example, and I have a demo or something. Somebody's like coming by soon to take a look at what I'm working on, and this thing has to work in 30 minutes and it doesn't work right now. That can make me a little anxious, but at the same time, like, um, I tend to enjoy that little push that you can get from having to focus on fixing something quickly. Um, but yeah, you're definitely right that this goes away with experience because you just need to learn that you're able to solve problems, and once you see yourself doing that enough times, then you'll start to believe it. Um, yeah. Um, Joshua writes, "What is your favorite food?" Uh, well, I think I have two favorite foods. I have a favorite taste, and a favorite like pragmatic food. So my favorite tasting food is Napolitana style pizza, and I live within driving distance of one of the top Napolitana style pizzerias in the world, which is very nice. Um, but as much as I love the taste of that pizza, I don't like the way it makes me feel, and I don't like what it does to my body. So when it comes to practical food that I actually eat all the time, my favorite is fried vegetables with cottage cheese, and I eat that twice every day. Um, I posted about it on Twitter a while back with some picture. I make the same meal twice a day for the simplicity and just to have like something consistent and healthy. Um, and yeah, I really like fried vegetables. I'm a lifelong vegetarian, and um, I like calculating the macronutrients of things and making sure that I get a well balanced diet. And if I eat well, I feel good, and then I'm able to be productive, which is what I really care about. Okay, so Roman writes, "Congrats on the 10K. Tell us about other things in your life. Do you have any hobbies outside of programming? I know you played some video games like Zelda. Do you consider yourself as a gamer? What are your favorite games?" Um, okay, well, other things I do in my life. So, my main secondary hobby outside of programming is um, training. So, I like lifting weights, and I also like running. But I like lifting weights more than I like running. But you kind of have to have both resistance training and cardio training. So I am usually in the gym 4 days a week, sometimes five. Um, and I would say while I only spend an hour in the gym, there's probably 2 hours um, total because of preparation time before and showering and stuff after. So um, a little bit of travel, but that is my main secondary hobby, and I do consider myself a gamer. I started playing games very early, and I've always liked video games. And I do have, um, in terms of consoles, I have the PS4 and a Nintendo Switch at the moment. And I don't play as much as I used to, but if something cool comes out, then I will usually set aside some time to play it. Like I enjoyed Breath of the Wild when that came out. Um, and um, in recent years, like my favorite game. So in the past, I would have said The Last of Us because I love The Last of Us. That's a really fantastic game. Um, but I was not super excited about the second one. I felt like they should have just left that game alone, and it kind of soured me a little bit on the whole thing. Um, but nowadays, I think I would say Ori. The Ori games are my favorite games. So the Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I really, really like those games. Um, they're really beautiful and really fun, and the music is great, and just everything is just great. And when I was playing, I played Ori and the Will of the Wisps a couple of months ago, and it made me kind of emotional um, because of the things that happen in the game, which were very beautiful, and I really like that. But yeah, I don't spend so much time playing games these days. I prefer to dump all of my time into programming, and games is just one of those things that I choose to cut out so that I have more time for programming. Um, but I sometimes joke around with saying that if I could just press the pause button on life and have infinity time, I would probably play World of Warcraft Classic for just 3 years straight. Just do all the stuff, literally everything, and then unpause life and go back to normal. But since I don't have a great pause button, I just don't engage with Warcraft at all because I have already put in literal man years into World of Warcraft, and I'm not looking to put in any more. Anyway, I hope that answers the question. Um, so Vlad writes, "Hello from Belarus. Could you tell us about your routines and your day in general? How much time do you spend on coding? What about sport? Do you use any to-do manager? Tell us about yourself." Okay, so my routine, Right now I'm on Christmas holidays, so my routine is I just sleep until I wake up, and then I go to the computer and work on Serenity. But um, during normal work weeks, my routine is that I wake up at 7:30 or something like that, and um, get up, make some tea, go to work, um, and then I have some like video meetings during the day, and I work in a research lab doing programming, so my tasks kind of vary from day to day. Sometimes I spend a lot of time in meetings, sometimes I don't. But generally, I'm at my computer regardless because all meetings take place at the computer because I work from home, which I guess I should have said first. So um, I sit at the computer until work is done, and then um, I switch to working on my own things when I have time for that. And one thing of note is that at I don't eat anything until noon because I do intermittent fasting. So I only eat between noon and 7 p.m. And I've been doing that for the last 4 months now, and it's been really, really good. Really helped me with my energy in the morning, and it's helped me cut down a lot of unnecessary fat that I was carrying around. So I've lost about 9 kilograms now, I think, or something like that. And yeah, I definitely feel a lot better um, from that. And running feels a lot better, so it's all good. And I still have a bit of fat on my body that I'm gonna get rid of, um, but not too far to go now. Just just another month or so, maybe. We'll see. Anyway, that was not your question. You were asking how much time I spend on coding. So I code all. I mean, I don't code all day for work, but I do code a lot for work. And outside of that, I guess I spend something like 4 hours, 4 hours a day coding Serenity stuff. And sports, like I was saying earlier, I put maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours at most. Say 1 hour and a half, 4 or 5 days a week. And I don't use any to-do manager. I used to use these habit tracker software in the past, but I stopped doing it because I didn't feel like I needed it or like it was helping me. Instead, I've sort of chosen to simplify my life to the point where I don't really need habit trackers or to-do managers. I just do literally the same routine every day, like wake up, drink my tea, work, lunch at noon, and then when work is done, switch to Serenity, and eventually late at night, usually at 9:30 p.m. or something like that, I go to the gym, and then at 11 or so I go to sleep, and it's very simple. I feel like that answer was not very structured, but I hope that it's simple enough that it didn't need more structure than that. Okay. So Muhammad writes, "Hi Andreas, congrats. Question, how are you so confident when fixing really weird bugs? Whenever I find a bug, I kind of freak out." Uh, well, I think if I appear confident when I'm working on a bug, it's usually because the bug is my fault, right? Normally, at least, when you see me fixing bugs, it's because of something I broke. And since I wrote the code, I know what it's supposed to do. So it's just deviating from my original intent somehow, and I just need to figure out what it's doing that's different from what I intended. And when you're working on fixing a bug in something you built, it's usually pretty easy because you have a very strong mental model of the software already. It can be a lot more challenging to find bugs in something that you didn't write and you never saw before, right? So then you have to sort of construct this mental model before you can actually make progress on figuring out what's going wrong. Um, but yeah, the reason I'm confident when I'm working on Serenity bugs is because I have a very, very strong mental model of Serenity. Um, and I think, I mean, I don't know how long you've been programming, but if you're freaking out from bugs right now, just keep at it. Keep working, keep debugging stuff, and you will eventually become confident in your ability to find bugs. Because after you do it a couple of times, you'll realize that it's not such a big deal. Okay, Marvin writes, what do you personally think of Linus Torvalds and his negative statements about C++? Well, I don't personally think anything about Linus Torvalds. I've never met him. I don't know him. And I don't think I care what he thinks about C++ because he is not a serious C++ user. I don't think he cares particularly what I think about C either. So I'd say live and let live. All right. Lawrence writes, where would you like to see Serenity in a year's time? 5 years. Ooh, that's an interesting question. So a year's time, I guess starting with 1 year's time, in a year, I hope that we're still just doing this, that people are having fun working on the project and um, that things are a little better, a little more stable, a little faster, a little more fleshed out. But really, my 1 year ambition is just that people are still having fun and that we're all getting along and having a nice time. Because I think that as long as we keep this good spirit going, then the project's going to be fine. At least on that time frame. But 5 years, that's a long time. Like that's more than twice as long as we've been going already. So I guess if I can be a little bit more ambitious with my answer, I would say that it would be real sweet if in 5 years I could go and watch this video on YouTube in the Serenity browser. Um, that would be really cool. And it's going to take a lot of work in a lot of parts of the system to make that work. Not just the browser, but other stuff like like graphics and networking and probably kernel things. A lot of stuff that would have to work for that to happen. But it would be really cool if we could get there. Um, yeah, in 5 years. Yeah, in 5 years, if we could watch videos on YouTube, I think that would be sweet. Um, okay, so, oh, and Lawrence had a second question. So, does it matter if anyone uses Serenity, or is its creation alone enough reward? Do you see having users as a critical goal, or just a nice thing to have? So it doesn't matter to me if anybody uses Serenity. I just started making something for myself, and that's still what I'm doing. I'm just having fun building the operating system that I want to use based on the sensibilities and aesthetics that I personally like. Um, so the fact that other people have sort of rallied around it and find their reason to work on it and their motivation and ways to make it their own. I love that. It's super fun, but it's not a goal or in any way critical. Like, if everybody left tomorrow, I would just keep going anyway because I'm having so much fun and what I love where the project is going, and even if I have to do it alone or if I get the help of some amazing people, um, the project will go where it's going anyway. Um, but it is very sweet to have so many people find their own reason to work on it, and it's something that I really, really appreciate, and it does make me feel very lucky and very happy and proud and all kinds of other happy words. Um, but for for my sake, like I actually don't care if anybody uses it or not. I'm gonna do it anyway. Okay, so Adrian writes, "Congrats, man. What do you think are the stuff someone should learn after knowing the basics of C? I mean, the syntax and some libc functions to get to the next level." So I don't know really what to. I feel maybe a little bit bad about this, but I never quite know what to tell beginners who are looking for help with C++ because it's just been so long since I've been a beginner that I don't remember what it's like, and I don't have any resources um, ready on hand, to hand out. So, um, but that's okay because the internet is full of resources for anybody who wants to learn programming, right? So, um, I guess my high level advice to you is to just write code and do anything. Just don't stop. That's the only thing that you can do that would mess you up. Like, just keep programming, keep writing code, and try all kinds of things, and just whatever beginner resource is probably fine. Like, they're all fine. Don't worry too much. Just do something. Keep going. Okay, so Jessica writes, "Hey Andreas, I'm a huge fan. As someone who wants to write their own OS from scratch, what resources did you find most useful in the early stages of development? I found most of the available material to be either painfully dry or too threadbare to be useful." Um, okay, so I get asked this every now and then, like, what resources to recommend for like early stage OS development. And in my case, I come from a background in emulator development. So I was working on an x86 emulator for a very long time, for like 18 years. And I learned operating system stuff, concepts backwards by trying to get Linux and Windows and stuff like that to run in my emulator. So by the time I wanted to build an OS myself, I had already seen operating systems from like that perspective. So um, I was able to draw on that very heavily, and I didn't really need a lot um, of the usual resources. That said, I did have a bunch of help from the osdev.org wiki, especially with stuff like setting up a GCC toolchain, because I was not familiar with that stuff. So there is a lot of great stuff on there, I think. It's just it is very limited to early stages, but I guess that's what you're asking about. Um, in general, I think um, my most useful advice for early stage OS development is that you don't have to start with a bootloader. That's such I think that's such a destructive meme in the OS dev world, that like first you do the bootloader and then you start with a minimal kernel and then you do a VGA text mode driver and blah blah blah. You don't have to do that. You can start anywhere. If you want to build an operating system, it's going to be a huge project anyway, so you can start anywhere. Especially if your intentions are to build sort of a POSIX API, because then you can just start writing a POSIX shell right now if that's what you really want to do. And eventually, once you put a kernel underneath it, then you'll have a shell. If you want to build a file manager, you can start with that. If you want to build a GUI, you can start with that. Like, you don't have to start at the bottom. I think it. Oh, it's something that I find a little bit silly, and I think a lot of hobby operating systems or amateur operating systems kind of die because people think that they have to start with those things, the bootloader and the kernel and the stuff, and they end up sort of burning out because it's boring. And I really wish that people would realize that you don't have to do things in a specific order. Um, so that is definitely my advice to anybody starting with an OS. Um, but yeah, it is dry and threadbare, but that's just the nature of this stuff, because unlike other forms of programming, there's not like a line of hundreds of thousands of people looking to how to build an operating system. It's like a very small niche interest, right? So you're just gonna have to deal with the threadbare situation, I think. Um, but if you just keep at it, eventually you will figure things out and you'll feel awesome because it's really fun. So best of luck with that. Okay, so RJKLMNO writes, Congrats, Andreas. 10K subs are quite a lot for a channel focused on a niche topic like OS development. I have 3 questions. What is your current PC config? What would be your dream config? Do you have a favorite CPU or favorite CPU architecture? Okay, so uh, my current PC config is, God, I am such a software person that I don't even remember any of the specs of my computer. But what I do remember is that people sent me all the parts for it. So um, about a year ago, almost, um, somebody started a thread on the SerenityOS subreddit saying like, "Hey, let's get Andreas a new computer." Because I had been complaining and complaining that my compilation was so slow, and people who were watching my videos, they saw this and they were like, "Okay, let's just get him a new computer." And a bunch of people got together and they each bought me like one part, and then they shipped them to me, and it was super cool because stuff just kept showing up in the mail. And eventually I had enough parts to put together a whole computer. And that's the computer I'm using today. It's called QNCVS, which is one letter from each person who sent a part. So that's Quaker, Namchubbed, Charlie Horse 55, and Valtteri and Spencer. And I hope I got those names right. And that computer is my dream computer because it is so much faster than any computer I've ever had, and it has fancy RGB lights, which I've never had, and it is it's just every time that I sit at the computer, I just can't not think about how people sent me the parts, and it makes me feel awesome and super happy and grateful. Um, and I um, I don't know. I just feel very grateful to have this computer. It is definitely my dream computer for that reason. And do I have a favorite CPU? I guess I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna have to say I really like x86 CPUs because I have been working, like I said, like 18 years on an x86 emulator, and I just really like it. I find that it's really a fun architecture, and um, we'll see what happens in the future. Maybe x86's days are numbered at this point. Who knows? But right now, it is my favorite, and um, it always has been. But we'll see what happens. All right. So Robert writes, "Hey Andreas, and thanks for this wonderful channel. I've been following you since the first boom, I think, when YouTube suggested your channel. I didn't realize you were a fellow Swede, as your English is pretty much void of the usual tells. As someone described it, your channel is like comfort food, a beacon in these weird times we're in. There's quite a few things I'd like to ask you as a fellow Swede, and quite a level-headed person, but I'll settle on the subject of Serenity. As things are progressing, do you think that you will be able to get to work sustainably on Serenity in the foreseeable future? And do you ever fear that it will become work and thus a chore? I know you've touched a little bit on this in previous car talks, but things change and the channel grows bigger." Well, thank you, Robert, for this wonderful question. I really like it. And I'm glad that you've been here since the first boom. So it's always funny when people ask about my or people comment on my English accent because I do put like an earnest effort into speaking clearly, and I try to speak well, and I try to leave my Swedish accent at the door. Um, but if I listen to myself talking in a video, then I can always hear those tiny little things where the Swedish sounds come through. But anyway, um, to your question, if I think I will be able to work sustainably on Serenity in the near future or a foreseeable future, I don't know. I hope so. It is definitely my dream to be able to do that. Um, and I don't think it's something that will happen in 3 months or 6 months. But as you say, the channel grows bigger, and the support that I've been getting on the various platforms, GitHub sponsors, Patreon, PayPal, and lately Teespring, um, it is amazing. And I am so grateful to everybody who supports me in this way, because not only does it give me hope that that I can actually turn this into a full-time thing someday, which would be just amazing to be able to work and produce content and um, like make Serenity all day long. Like I would love to do that, but we'll see what happens. Um, but not only does it make me feel like this is a possible thing in the future, but also um, thanks to all of the support I've been getting, uh, I was able to get through some, let's say, like financial hard times in the last year, which was a huge relief. And I don't think I could ever thank people enough for all of the help. Um, and just the fact that I had so many people to lean on when things were a bit hard, that was super helpful. And I kind of feel like I'm almost out on the other side of that whole thing. And now I'm looking into the future, and I would love it if the future had full-time Serenity work. But it all depends, right? Like, um, I want to work on it full time, but I also want to do donation based crowdfunding for that. Like, I don't want to start selling weird things or shilling things that I don't use, things like that. Um, you know, I mean, I haven't thought much about this actually, but I would be happy um, to take sponsorship from um, from something if it's something that I personally use. But I have been approached by a number of things that I don't use that I don't want to tell other people to use. Um, so we'll see. I guess I am limiting myself a bit in that way, but so be it, right? Like I would rather, like if it takes 2 years, 3 years to build something sustainable, I would prefer that instead of like getting something up and running quickly now, but like not liking what it's made of. So, um, yeah, I like this kind of slow progression that we have actually. And not just in terms of financial support, but also like the fact that the audience, it does grow, right? But it grows kind of slowly, and that's a bit nice because then I don't have to have this overwhelming feeling that it's just uh it's just growing too fast. We're still at a pace where I feel like um I can talk to people and engage, right? And then you also ask if I fear that it will become work and a chore. Um, I guess I mean, yes and no. Like, I think that everything that you have to do, there's always things in life that you have to do, right? Um, and even the funnest things have some element um, of less fun to them. Like I love going to the gym, but I'm not super excited to do squats, for example, because they're heavy and difficult. But at the same time, I want to do them because I want to get better at them and get stronger and build a strong core and strong legs. So um, there's always some squat in every aspect of life, and um, it's the same thing with Serenity. Like if I work on Serenity full time, then I'm gonna have to do some things that are less fun. But all of the good times, the good stuff will make up for it. So I'm not worried about that. Anyways, thank you for asking about that. It's been a while since we talked about it, and I am very, very happy with all of the support I've been getting, and super huge thank you to everybody for helping me out and for like pushing me to move forward. Um, yeah. Okay, and then Fernando writes, "Congrats on 10K. It is a bit sad to see how your recognition grows on YouTube to the point that perhaps in a few months or years there will no longer be an Andreas subscriber relationship, and we will lose that more personal contact between the comments of all the subscribers that we followed you almost 2 years ago." Um, well, it is. That's an interesting point. Like, it's definitely true that um, that a year ago, if I would post a commute talk video and there would be like two comments, it would be very easy to engage with that. But sometimes if I post a video that gets like over 20 comments, then it's almost like it's a little bit overwhelming for me, and I don't know how to start engaging with people. So sometimes I just don't, or sometimes I try to respond to somebody here and there. Um, but it is true that like the larger the audience, there's a little bit of detachment that happens. But I really do try actively to fight that detachment and try to force myself to engage anyway, because I really, really enjoy talking to people, and I enjoy talking to people who are excited about programming. That's something that like makes me feel excited and makes me happy, and um, I think it's so rewarding to just meet people, whether we meet in person or online. Like it doesn't really matter. Just meeting people and sharing that love for programming. So it is something um, that I am aware is a dangerous thing, and it's something that I'm actively like trying to prevent from happening by forcing myself to engage with people. But I'm glad you brought it up because it is a very important thing, I think, and it's important to not just be ignorant or to try to ignore it and hope it goes away, right? Because it doesn't go away. It's a real thing, and I have to manually engage. But I guess that's what we're doing right now, Fernando, huh? But yeah, thank you for asking that question. And I guess we can take one last question here. So MP writes, "Congrats. Where does the name Serenity come from?" It comes from the Serenity prayer, which I learned while I was in rehab. So I went to rehab for a drug addiction problem. And as part of the treatment, they were leaning on the on many things, but one thing that was there was the 12-step method. And the Serenity Prayer is an old American prayer, I think, that is very commonly used in recovery programs. And it goes, um, "God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." Um, and it's something that has been very, very powerful and helpful for me. Anyway, I think we're going to cut off here because there's a lot more questions and it's a little bit cold in the car. So thanks for hanging out with me tonight, and Merry Christmas one more time. And I will see you all next time. Bye.